I want to start this podcast by the words of Nelson Mandela. He says, "No single person can liberate a country. You can liberate a country if you act as a collective." Yesterday, the South African people went out in large numbers, especially the youth, to vote for their leaders. Who are their leaders? There is the ANC party, which has a long history from Nelson Mandela Madiba, who was fighting for the freedom of South Africa. South Africa has a long history in its democracy, whereby there was an apartheid regime. This is where the whites believe in white supremacy. They were subjecting the blacks to harsh conditions, mass incarcerations, shooting and killings, crime, and there was specific areas that were designed for the whites and specific areas that were designed for the blacks. In Africa, there are various resources that really attracted the whites to come and build on it. And these resources are such as gold and diamond in Transvaal and Orange Free State. These two states really made South African people to go an extra mile in fighting for their democracy. There are certain people such as Steve Biko in 1960 who were killed, assaulted, and murdered because of their right to protest and their right to set up trade unions that were not recognized by the official government of South Africa. And today, South Africans are practicing the rule of law by subjecting themselves to election. But how is the election going on? South Africa has a long history in crime, of employment, and corruption. And people of South Africa are now serious about getting to the ballot. Most youth have turned out in great numbers to protest and to actually exercise their right to democracy. The ANC party that was by Nelson Mandela Madiba. Nelson Mandela is a legend in our African continent for fighting for South Africans, going to a prison of Robben Island for 27 years because of his belief in the black equality, in which whites and blacks can live in harmony, can live as one people instead of the white supremacy. And that is how Nelson Mandela got himself in prison. And in 1994, he was elected as the president of South Africa. That was after 1990, de Klerk, being the president, allowed for an interim constitution. The interim constitution was of the fact that there is no one political party to rule, and the rule of law is according to the democracy. It's according to the rule of the people. And that is how people voted, and he won by a mid distance to become the first black president of the South Africa. ANC party was the party used, and there were leaders that came after him. One is Jacob Zuma, who now vies with the MK. MK is vying for the presidency. And you know, South Africa and Kenya have different ways of working. In South Africa, you elect first the MPs. MPs are going to be 400 MPs. And now in 400 MPs, these are the ones who are going to elect the president. And like in Kenya, where we elect our president in the ballot, South Africa, you need to have 201 votes of our MPs in order for you to be the president of South Africa. That is quite complicated, since you have seen Julius Malema, who has been struggling to liberate South Africans, who has been struggling to oppose the ANC government and bring out loopholes in the way of governance of South Africa, saying that there has been corruption, unemployment, there has been embezzlement of resources, and many other things that have led to the decline and the underperformance of South Africa. This is why EFF has been in the ballot to protest and to decide, to let the people decide on the fate of South Africans. Is this a good thing? Is this going to fracture the democracy of South Africa, or it's going to build it? Lately, as I look at it, South Africans are still going on well, in which the ANC has 60% votes, and the EFF by Julius Malema 17.7% votes. The MK by Jacob Zuma, former president of the ANC, has 10.4% votes, and the DA has 3% votes. As it looks, the ANC is having a lead in this, a strong lead, and the ANC which has been with their leader, and the PSC, which has been with their leader, who was the first black president, Nelson Mandela. This is a great opportunity for South Africans to actually exercise their rule of law, to actually exercise their democracy. And I'm glad that democracy is thriving, especially for the youth standing out in big numbers to actually practice the rule of law. Otherwise, don't forget to like and follow Story Namose.